You are listening to a podcast from Australia's best-known community radio station, 3RRR, 102.7 in Melbourne.
Hey, Tim, we're going to play now an interview with Sinead O'Connor that you and I did on Wednesday afternoon. Sinead O'Connor came into RRR about 3:30 on Wednesday afternoon.
And left at exactly 3:45.
That's right. We only had 15 minutes with her. And initially she was... I don't know, I sort of was a bit awkward around her because she seemed a little uptight, but by the end of the interview she'd relaxed.
Well, she'd had one heck of a day.
She did, yes.
She'd been raced... Imagine what it's like to be bundled into a car, raced off to the age, as she was, raced off to here, and then 15 minutes later, boom, again, no time for a cup of tea, no time for anything, and then raced off to a sound check, and... I mean,
yes, in a city that you're not familiar with as well.
Talking to people you don't know. And I thought she was quite charming.
Yeah, I thought she was charming too. I suppose just before the interview plays, we should mention, because maybe not everyone can remember, or there might be some young listeners that you have, Tim, who aren't up to speed with Sinead. When we're talking about controversies, we're talking about in the early 90s when she was on American television and famously ripped up a picture of the Pope.
Which was a protest.
A protest about the Catholic Church child rape. And she has also been sort of, she's been, you know, I mean, they call sort of women who speak like her outspoken. She's also been very vocal about abortion law in Ireland as well. So, as well as a whole other things. Like, when she was really huge, she was constantly saying things that were provoking and upsetting people.
Some of which now, especially with the ripping up of the picture of the Pope, even though I suppose the Pope, you know, kindly old man, but head of a sort of a massive... Anyway, I won't go on about it. It was sort of considered shocking and maybe appalling because people didn't believe what she was saying was going on at that time, and now it's all come to light. So in a way she was a person before a time.
Precisely. And after the interview, just quietly, Tim Thorpe was hoping that Sinead would rip up a photo of him. You're a little crestfallen that didn't happen.
Oh, yes. It's a matter of, you know, if someone important insults you, it's almost as important as someone saying something nice. We must also mention we didn't go so much into her past because that's well documented in terms of her childhood and mother and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, let's have a listen. There is a language warning. Elizabeth, I told you not to use that foul language.
Couldn't help myself.
I know.
You're around a controversial figure. You want to be controversial yourself, don't you?
Yes, so watch out for that, but otherwise sit back, relax and enjoy.
Sinead O'Connor, thank you so much for taking time out to come here. I thought we'd start off our conversation today just by talking about your voice, because your voice is such a marvel to your fans. How old were you when you began singing, and when did you realise in yourself that you had this phenomenal voice?
Jeez, well, I began singing when I was a little kid, because singing was a kind of culture in my family, particularly my father's family. Everybody was singers, and even still now when everyone gets together they sing like you're not allowed in if you're not going to sing, you know. And also in my mother's family, but not quite so much. So singing was always there, basically. But the first time I remember thinking, well, I have music inside me, was when I was about 5 or 6, and in those days in Ireland you could walk around pretty safely enough at that age without any worry. You'd be allowed out, wander around the streets, you'd be grand, you know. And there was a laneway up from my mother's house to another estate, and as I was walking down the laneway, just with the footsteps, I began to hear melodies, you know. So that was the first time I noticed I actually had the desire to make music inside me, or whatever. I began to hear tunes every time I heard a train going or a woman walking, you know, stilettos or any kind of rhythm would make me think of melodies, you know.
Sure.
So that was from when I was small. So.
When did you actually realise you had a voice, in the sense it's a voice that not only you would have fun with yourself but other people enjoyed?
I don't know if you ever realise that, really, because I guess with me, can't speak for anyone else, but it was such a personal thing that I was thinking more of the desire to sing than anything else, do you know what I mean? Because I kind of had a whole lot of crap on my mind or whatever when I was younger, do you know, and I was more thinking of the benefits for me. I wasn't really thinking about how it might sound to anybody else, do you know what I mean? So I don't think it's true for anyone that we'd sit there one day and go, oh my God, what a great voice I have, you know what I mean? It doesn't really work like that, you know. But the first time I knew I wanted to be a singer was, well, it was a few times actually, but the first work I ever did was when I was about 14. I was commissioned to write a song for an Irish band for their first album, So I did that, and I had to go into studio to do the guide vocal, and that was the first time I ever set foot in a studio or discovered reverb, you know. So from then on I was like, okay, I so totally want to be a singer, because I fell in love with reverb, you know. So.
In the last few years you decided to take singing lessons as well, I've read.
I know, I did that years ago. After the album that had Nothing Compares to You on it, I moved back to Ireland for a year to go to a particular singing teacher,
So where did those lessons take you with your voice?
Well, it was great, really, because the teacher was my father's best friend, actually. This is how mad into singing my father is, that he would go for every day for singing lessons to this guy, just to be able to sing at parties and stuff. And they became best mates, basically, because my dad used to go so often, so they just go out every Friday and get drunk together or whatever. But this guy, Frank Merriman was his name, Merriman, he always would say, I'm not a singing teacher, he'd say, I'm a freer of voices. And the great thing that he taught me was to really be me and sing in my own accent and sing in my own personality. So say if you listen to my first couple of records, and it's common with a lot of people from different countries, you know, we all make records singing in an American accent, you know, or trying to sound like the people we are inspired by, you know. So from the time that I went to see him, every other album was actually singing in my own accent, and I think that was a great freedom that he gave me. And also he gave me this thing, which is the most valuable singing lesson I think that anyone could ever have, is that the emotions will take you to the notes. If you, for example, he would say, if a fire went off in here, you could scream fire at the height of your voice, but if you went to sing it, you might not be able to, you know. So the idea is, you know, see the emotions, feel the emotions, see the picture, tell the story, and the emotions will carry you to the note, but if you start thinking about the note, you're fucked.
But that must have been the case before you had the singing lessons, because your early work, certainly... Well, look, I'm a wreck.
Well, it was
I'm a wreck at the moment, because I've spent the last 3 hours listening to your stuff, and some of those songs have torn me apart.
Oh, no,
and it's all, and sometimes I realise that some of the notes you actually hit, is that by design or by accident?
No, it was very unconscious, and it was because I had a lot of painful stuff on my mind, to be honest. So it was a great healing process to be able to get that stuff out, but I wasn't thinking either of the notes or the emotions in particular, because when you're young, you're not really thinking that much, you're just feeling, you know. So whereas now I might go to sing a particular song, and if I'm nervous about, you know, a note that's coming up or whatever, I'll just think of the emotions, the emotional thing. Where normally you go for singing lessons, they'll teach you scales, and but this guy had nothing to do with that, you know. His particular style of singing was called bel canto, which means beautiful singing, and they don't teach you notes or scales or nothing like that. It's purely always sing in your own voice. The emotions will take you to the note, you know. And then there's little tricks they teach you, like he would always get you to do songs much higher than your actual range, so that then when you came down to your range it'd be easier. But in the middle of a song, when he knew you were about to come to the difficult note, you'd like throw an apple at you or something, you know, or throw a ball at you, so you'd be distracted and the note would come out. So he's teaching all about how when you get your mind out of the way, actually the notes are all in you, you know. So again, one of the tricks he gave me is if I was nervous about a particular note, if I like tap my foot and I think about the foot, I don't actually think for that moment about the sentence I'm singing or whatever, but if I concentrate on my foot, the note will come out, you know, a way to distract yourself from...
What an incredible process. And speaking of emotions, I know that you've said in the past too that there are certain songs that make you cry and you sort of don't want to go there. Are there songs in your back catalogue that you will no longer perform because they drag up too many emotions that you'd rather not...
Well, not ones that make me cry, but I have a hard time with kind of angry songs. I mean, I like them, they're great for what they were, but I don't identify with that emotion particularly anymore, you know. So like Troy, for example, I love it, it's a great song and everything, but I'm not that pissed off anymore, do you know what I mean? And I'm not the kind of singer I've been trained to be. I have to find something that I can emotionally identify with, because that was one of the other things your man would teach you, is look, never sing a song that you can't identify emotionally with, you know. So obviously being if you're 44, as opposed to those songs, a lot of them I wrote when I was 16, 17, 18, do you know what I mean? I don't identify with them. So.
Do you think there might be a problem with singers that you know, that magic age of 27 where a lot of them seem to drop off the twig? It's almost like they've outlived their usefulness. Once your youth is gone, the anger's gone, whatever it is inside you that produces this great material has gone. You might become a better craftsperson, but not necessarily that whatever it was that was special might be hard to recreate. Do you face that, or are you finding you continually refreshed?
Well, you know, I always say to my daughter, she's 14, I find myself saying to her a lot of the time, look, the only duty you have on this earth is to be you. You know, whatever that means, even if it means disagreeing with, you know, your mother, your father, your school, whoever it is, none of us actually matter as long as you're coming from love. Your only duty is to actually do you. So it doesn't, I gotta do me, like I can't decide what kind of records I make based on what anyone else thinks is the best of me, if you know what I mean. So my duty is to be me, like, do you know what I mean? Beyond that, I don't really think about, you know, because I don't believe in falseness, and I think people really respond to and identify with singers who are very honest. You know, they are the song, if you like. You know, and people are what am I trying to put it? People, audience is very intelligent. They will attract to the person who is honest in their singing, and they'll be put off by people who are fake in their singing. So there was a lot of kind of fake anger records around. I don't think people appreciated those. You know, they appreciate honesty. Like,
one person who is pretty honest and pretty real with the interpretation of lyrics was Frank Sinatra. Yet he once said he'd kick your ass. It seems you're in some ways alike, and you're both bits of ass kickers. I mean, were you... I would imagine I'd be rather flattered if Frank even mentioned my name.
Well, exactly, that's what I mean. I mean, what little Irish girl can say Frank Sinatra threatened to kick their butt? Exactly.
Yeah.
The frightening thing was I was staying in the same bloody hotel as him. I was like, oh, shit. I mean, they live because I'm thinking, oh my God, am I going to have to beat up this old geezer? Like, which obviously I didn't fancy, you know.
Because there's been a fair bit of controversy around you over the years, Sinead, and you haven't shied away from speaking out about Irish politics and the hypocrisies and lies of the Catholic Church.
I never speak about politics because I don't know anything about politics.
Certainly, but in the past you have, like you've talked about...
I never talk about politics. I would talk about the church a lot, but
I was thinking about like abortion law in Ireland.
Oh, there was one sort of public outcry over one particular case of a girl who'd been raped, and she wasn't... the police were stopping her leaving the country to have an abortion.
I'm wondering, because there's been controversy around you, and because you entered into these debates when you were so young and famous, how on earth have you coped over the years with the media frenzies that have happened around you?
Well, I'm kind of used to it now, but when I was younger, in truth, it really messed me up. I really was quite disturbed and distressed by the whole thing, you know, so I was too young to really understand that I wasn't a piece of shit, for want of a better word. I don't know. I like Australia because apparently you can say anything on the radio. But, you know, when you're young, if somebody says to you, you're blah, 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 you believe them. You don't have enough sense of yourself yet to realise that actually you're perfectly alright the way you are, you know. So it's very, kind of punishing of myself. I took on a lot of very negative attitudes towards myself, and I couldn't understand because in my mind I was just being me. I wasn't trying to be controversial or you know, someone that you'd start making records, someone put a microphone in front of your face and ask you a question, you'd answer it, and the next thing everybody would be telling you you're a complete piece of shit, like, and you're thinking, well, why ask me? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I was actually very, 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 very traumatised by the whole thing. So, but obviously it was a 50-50 relationship, do you know what I mean? So I can't say it was entirely anyone's fault. It was my own also, but they don't give you any lessons when you start making records. Your record company will throw you in a room with 10 journalists for the day, and they don't say, well, look, be careful what you say or whatever, or protect yourself, do you know, that way. So.
Yeah. Did you have support behind the scenes when you had these sort of media frenzies about you? Like, was the record company supportive?
No,
did you have friends, or were there other, like, celebrities who would ring you up and say, I thought what you said was really great?
No, I had absolutely no support whatsoever, no.
When you first appeared, it was your voice that marked you as a quality artist to a lot of people. But it was also the way you presented yourself with your shaved head and a non-conformist, non-sexualised image. It was incredibly brave and so unusual in the sort of popular music landscape for someone like you to appear. Was your record company sort of at the time endorsing the way you presented yourself, or did they see it more as like sort of a gimmick, like we've got this woman who's got a shaved head?
Well, what it was born out of actually was my record company sat me down one day and said to me, well, look, I had a kind of a Mohican, not quite a Mohican, but it was heading in that direction. I was kind of all shaved at the sides and a little, so I was obviously heading towards shaving anyway. But what happened was the record company sat me down, these two guys who I love now, I'm best friends with one of them still, but anyway, they had mistresses who looked like exactly what they wanted me to look like, and it was basically they wanted me to grow my hair really long and wear short skirts and high heel shoes and the whole thing, and I happened to mention this to Faulkner out there, my manager, and he said, oh, I think you should fucking shave your head. So I did. I went off to this barber in Bayswater, and the man cried when he did it. He begged me not to make him do it. And then when he did, I was like 19 or something, then when he did it, he went, it looks so much better the other way. He was really miserable. So it was really a reaction against them trying to make me this. I didn't want to be, based around how I looked, or, I wanted to be about how I sounded.
In a sense, it backfired on you because you became a bit of a style icon, so much that your head was good enough to be on for one shot through a whole clip.
Well, it wasn't just that I didn't want to be, trying to find the right words. It wasn't that I didn't want to be perceived as an artist through how I looked. It wasn't only that, but I didn't want any fucking record company to be telling me what I should do or not do, or what song I should have on my record or anything like that. I reckon their job is sell the records and my job is make them, so our job is look like we want to bloody look, and also it was equally just to say, oh, screw you, I'm not going to be whatever you want me to be, So.
Sure, yeah. And we're talking to Sinead O'Connor here on Vital Bits today, and you're performing at the Sydney Myer Music Bowl Saturday night, and you're doing 7 songs. Can we ask which 2 songs you've chosen as the ones that influenced you to get into music?
Oh, well, the categories, as far as I know, is there's only one which is the song that influenced you to get into music, and that would be a Bob Dylan song called Gotta Serve Somebody, which is a great song. And my brother Joe, who's about 3 years older than me, he brought home the record with Slow Train Coming, the album, and he brought that home when I must have been about 11. And it just completely blew my mind, because I was always interested in kind of religious music. It's a religious record. But the Irish religious music was so boring. Then when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, it's really sexy and everything, so...
Sure.
That's good.
We've got to wrap it up.
All right.
Unfortunately.
Cool. Thanks for coming.